out there on YouTube, it is me, the Reverend. I am Sanswell, the other middle-aged guys, but I'm actually want to go ahead and make another video on my own to do two things. Number one, I want to go ahead and remind everybody out there that I still have the Steam key giveaway going on. Like I said, if you go ahead and you've been looking at my videos, if you make a comment, like, subscribe to the channel, and then share the videos out, and you leave a link showing that you shared the videos out, I'm going to consider that an entry into the giveaway. And I have multiple keys that I have available, and I'll give away up to three winners. So if you want to go ahead and check that out, I'll leave one of the information cards up here in one of these areas, so that you can go ahead and refer to the original video where I announced the giveaway. That way we can go ahead and you can actually see some people make some comments and interact, and get some I don't know, some feedback that you guys are actually watching this, because I have a lot of keys and I'd love to give them away. I think it's a like and a subscription and a comment and a share is a small price to go out of your way for a giveaway. That aside, one of the videos that we had put together over the weekend, we had posted up that I did with the other middle-aged guys was our market analysis of how things have been going for 2017. 2017 has been stellar so far. In comparison to the raw numbers, though, and my buddy Darth Ringo actually brought this up in one of the comments, what a lot of people don't know is that in comparison to last year, the overall amount of sales revenue up to this time in the year, in comparison to 2016, it's actually down by 6%. Okay, and I'll leave a link to the page that actually has all of that. That's kind of interesting to go ahead and look at, thinking that the actual overall sales revenue for video games is down as a whole, with all of these stellar titles coming out. And for this year alone, let me just go ahead and look at the games that have come out the beginning of this particular year. You have Yakuza 0, Neo, For Honor, Halo Wars 2. Let's see here. Also, Resident Evil 7 actually came out this year. Tales of Berseria. Coming down to March, we have Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, Ghost Recon Wildlands, Nier Automata, which we failed to mention. And also, at the end of this month, Mass Effect Andromeda is coming out also. So instead of just the 5 major games that we had mentioned in that particular video, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 major titles to release out by the end of March. And then April starts up right off the bat with Persona 5. Now, all of the titles I talked about are all original titles. Original, and I mean that these aren't remakes, they aren't re-releases or anything else that was put out on previous platforms or on the same platform previously, with less expansions or maybe in a new Game of the Year edition for what we have in front of us right now. But this is a lot of titles that have actually gone out. If we sit there and we put out the fact that we have this stellar number of AAA titles that are, for all intents and purposes, none of these games have been, rated badly. These are the types of things that, when we consider that the sales revenue for the time of the year is actually down by 6%, it's something that we have to go ahead and worry about. And this is a point that I really wasn't able to make with my other cohorts in the previous video. And that's when we have a lot of titles out like this that go ahead and appeal to gamers or the industry as a whole as things that we must have, very popular things that are expensive, and they're marketed as AAA titles. These things are brand new at $59.99. What we have to consider is that the consumers, the customers that we're trying to go ahead and actually have these, land into, and we're trying to convince to go ahead and buy, not just people like you and me, because let's be honest, as a hardcore gamer, I'm going to spend a lot of money on games anyways, okay? But my particular viewpoint and my spending habits when it comes to this stuff is a lot different, because I hardly ever buy games brand new, or I hardly ever buy games when they first launch. So although I'm going to spend a lot of my hard-earned cash toward that, and a lot of gamers will do that, we have to consider the other portion of the consumers, the folks who are more on the casual side. The thing is that when you have that many items competing for the same pool of money and everything, some of these titles are going to lose out. You know, right now as it is, I can probably bet you dollars to donuts that there's a handful, half of these games probably haven't sold anywhere near as much as publishers have wanted them to. It's just one of those things. It's you have too many things trying to go ahead and get a hold of the same pool of cash. Because if we were going by the standard logic that a lot better games, a lot more of them, should equate, you know, more money overall for the industry, and then you come down to the fact that the industry as a whole is actually down by 6%, then right off the bat, you have to sit there and say that a lot of these games, or there's a good portion of these games that aren't doing well in the market. And that is a thing that I wanted to point out when I was saying that this looks like we may be looking at like the beginning of a bubble. Now, the games industry, like I said before, isn't like the housing industry or real estate or anything like that. It's not something that's just going to go ahead and fill up and balloon out and then pop all of a sudden and then disappear. At least I hope not. I think a lot of publishers and a lot of folks and investors, the folks who throw money at publishers, are very wary of things that happen, like what happened in the early 80s with Atari and the video game crash of the early 80s. So a lot of them are very, very wary of that sort of thing. But the one thing that we have to sit there and be wary of is that, especially for somebody like me who likes physical media, if it turns out that a lot of these games aren't selling physical copies and that they're seeing that the market as a whole is shifting toward digital media, then physical copies are going to be a lot harder to come by. They're not going to invest in marketing and storing and shipping and all of the logistics behind handling physical media, which I think is a tragedy if that ever comes around. You know, without that physical media there, then of course the digital media will go ahead and it will blow up. Like I said, the way that the industry is, there are so many different parts of it, it just seems that the money kind of shuffles around. If the digital media isn't doing really well, then the physical media will usually be up. If it turns out that, you know, home consoles aren't doing as well as it was before, it looks like, oh, hey, look, tablets and smart devices and PC is doing better, which is something that we've seen over the last few years. Like I said, I'm not a paid industry analyst, but this is a type of thing that we have to pay attention to. You know, 2017 is a really busy year. It's a really exciting year if you're a geek. Like I said in the previous video, if you geek movies, geek TV, video games, it just seems like this is one of those, it's way past the coming out party when it comes for geeks actually ruling the world. It's one of those things where, you know, this is the stamp on culture and everything. Where I get really concerned is that when we sit there and we see all this stuff coming out, but then you look at the numbers behind it, that's going to drive the decisions of the people in charge who drive the industry forward. And if things don't match up, you know, the way that you initially wanted to, then that's concerning. That's very concerning. Let me give you a for example. To parallel it with another industry, let's look at the movie industry. We had a lot of great movies come out over the last few months that, you know, geeks would readily jump into. John Wick 2, Lego Batman, Logan, Kong Skull Island, just to name a few over the last actually few months. Okay, a few weeks ago when we went out and we had a chance to go ahead and see a movie, me and the other middle-aged guys, we went out and we saw a Lego Batman. I really wanted to go see John Wick 2. It's not because I'm of the mind of saying fuck Lego Batman. Actually, I enjoyed that movie a lot. I probably one of the most enjoyable movies that I've gone to ever, actually. But my concern is that John Wick, as far as it went, it came out of nowhere and it came out as a sleeper hit. It has a niche, a cult following, right? So it actually gets a sequel. You know, sequel goes through and it's out there for everybody to go ahead and see, but it has to compete with another movie that's asking for geek dollars. Okay, a lot of the same type of moviegoers were either going to choose between John Wick or Lego Batman. Not many people went out of their way to see both. And the thing about that concerns me is that Lego Batman, its opening weekend, it did 53 million. The domestic total to date right now is at 158 million, and the worldwide total to date is at 275 million. It had a budget of only $80 million. All right, actually that's a lot considering it's an animated movie, but had a budget of $80 million. It's in a pretty good position right now, considering the domestic total, to sit there and actually, just based off the domestic total alone, for Warner Brothers to sit there and say, hey, maybe we can go ahead and put out a Lego Batman 2. We don't have to worry about increasing the budget much at all, but we can go ahead and we can do it. John Wick 2, in comparison, had a budget of $40 million. Its opening weekend only did $30 million. So it did $23 million less than Lego Batman. The domestic total to date is $87 million, and the worldwide total to date is $152 million. Okay. Now you're like, well, it had a $40 million budget, so it made its money back. Yeah, but at this point in time, does it make enough money back to go ahead and influence publishers and the investors who sat there and invested into this movie into entertaining the thought of a third one? I haven't seen the movie yet, so I don't know if there's enough story still left in John Wick in order to make a third one, but it's something that we have to go ahead and consider. Let's look at some movies that are a little bit more current. Logan, which opened up not this weekend, but the weekend before last. That one, it had a budget of $97 million. It opened at $88 million. Domestic total to date is $152 million, and the worldwide total to date is $437 million. That particular one right there, if we're going by everything, a few more weeks and everything else, I think this is something that'll probably go ahead and convince the folks at Fox that, hey, if we're not going to be able to do another Wolverine movie, at least we're not going to be able to without Hugh Jackman, but if we're going to do something in the same vein and we treat it the same way, we have enough money to go out of our way and convince investors and the studios that, hey, doing something like this may be worth our time. Let's go over to Kong Skull Island, which just opened up this past weekend. Its budget was $185 million. Its opening was $61 million. Domestic total to date is $61 million, and the worldwide total to date is $146 million. At this moment in time, as much as I would love to see more things jump into this monster universe that Warner Brothers and Legendary is trying to put together, there isn't a lot of reasons right now to do that. Right now, they're still hoping to go ahead and break even. A lot of the money that could have gone to the folks who may have thought about seeing Kong Skull Island was still going to Wolverine, to Logan. So at this moment in time, unless something really, really, phenomenal happens and it grosses like domestically something like $400 million, the only time we're going to see Kong in any movie at all is when they go ahead and they do the planned King Kong versus Godzilla movie. But right now, because of the budget, Kong Skull Island is not looking very good. But we'll see how that goes next week. If I'm looking at the new movies that are coming soon, movies that are opening up this week, that are opening up Friday, we have Beauty and the Beast, The Belko Experiment, which looks pretty interesting, Bluebeard, Burn Your Maps, France, Trainspotting 2, and Song to Song. These are all movies that are opening up on Friday, the 17th. With that in mind, Kong Skull Island is not going to make much more money. Not in the domestic, not in the worldwide, especially with Beauty and the Beast showing up next Friday. It's not going to happen. Along those lines, guess which big movie is going to be one of the big losers? If I'm just trying to predict things, since the opening weekend is always the biggest weekend for a lot of movies, and things drop off drastically, usually around 60%. Kong Skull Island is probably going to go ahead and make maybe like another 25 million domestically next week, if they're lucky to, in which case they're not even going to break even. Which I understand if you're not a fan of that, that's your prerogative. But somebody who is a fan of the big monster movies and everything else, that doesn't bode too well, especially considering that I want to see what happens next. I want to see if Warner Brothers can go ahead and put together this monster universe. All right? And that's the same thing we have to go ahead and consider with games, that we can have a bunch of AAA titles that are released out, that are put on the shelves, that are critically acclaimed. Okay? But since a lot of things we have to worry about as far as from a publisher or business standpoint is how well it sells. Generally speaking, when you have this many AAA titles all, together in the same release window and everything else, there's just going to be a lot of competition for that stuff. And this doesn't even include, all of the indie games and other stuff that people will get off of Steam or on their phone or anything else. So, yeah, this is what I mean when I think we have to be concerned about that. Now, is this a doom and gloom prediction? No. And like I said before, I'm just a hobbyist. I'm nowhere near a professional analyst. But this is one of the things that we have to think about, whether or not it's a situation where it's like, oh, hey, look, maybe that's good for me as a gamer because, maybe these games are going to drop in price in like the next 2 months. And I can go ahead and I can pick them up on cheap. Well, that's great for me. But if you're actually expecting a lot of these titles to go ahead and have further sequels or to see further, success or to see further publication or anything like that, you have to be concerned. I'm pretty sure Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is going to be fine. But when it comes to things like For Honor, I mean, literally, when the Ubisoft servers went down, it lost over 60% of its player base. They went ahead and they moved on. I mean, and it was only down for like 2 days. So it's not going to be the money machine that Ubisoft is hoping that it's going to be. Resident Evil 7, unless you're somebody who's willing to go ahead and play it in VR or play it multiple times and things like that, are people going to be coming back to it? Does it have a huge multiplayer element or something that the publishers can go ahead and milk out for a long time? No, it doesn't. And that's something that has to be taken into account, and it has to concern you as a fan of that game. So, my whole point is that when I'm sitting there saying that it looks like maybe there may be some makings of a bubble for this particular industry, I'm not throwing it out there just to go ahead and raise hackles and to get people worried. No, I think there is something, if we look around for it, it is something we have to be concerned about. Because if the game industry crashed before, it can do it again. All right, it can crash again. And the one thing that really made me cringe about our conversation over this wasn't the fact that the crashing of the early 80s with Atari was mentioned. It was mentioned in the same breath as will never happen again. You can never say that. Okay, you can't say that. All right. After that, the only other thing that I have to go ahead and address and cap off on this particular video is, I guess Jim Sterling has had a lot of backlash, and a lot of people are angry at him. They DDoSed his website, sending him a lot of death threats and things like that, because he went ahead and he rated Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild a 7 out of 10, which is completely his prerogative. Now, if on the scale of things, a 5 is average, then the 7 is still good. Okay. Do I think it's worth getting death threats and getting your website shut down maliciously, and then getting everything that you've done put on blast in front of the world, or not in front of the world, but all over the internet? No, not at all. I don't think anybody deserves that. Okay. Even some of the people that I don't like. All right. And with Jim Sterling, I'm not his biggest fan. Okay. There's enough about, the presentation of his caricature that I just don't care for. Now, I will say this. Considering his style and everything else, when he was about ready to go ahead and put that rating in, all right, And he had to consider, all right, now that I'm going ahead and I'm putting this up on my site, you know, I'm the last person to go ahead and weigh in on this after everything is said and done. Now, I can give it an 8, you know, saying that it's a good game, but flawed, all right? Or I can give it a 7, saying that I like the game, but there's things that I really, really didn't like. But on top of that, I know this will go ahead and drop the Metacritic score of that one critical point to go ahead and drop it off from, you know, the second greatest, you know, rated games of all time. It'll drop it out of that group back into the ones that are just simply, well, really fucking great, timeless classics. They're still great. You know, I have trouble thinking that he wasn't considering that going into this, considering especially the way that, you know, as a critic and everything else, he goes ahead and he puts himself forward where, you know, he doesn't mind creating hate and angst over his review scores. He doesn't mind that at all. In fact, because of that, that brings a lot of attention to his site and what he does as far as videos and everything goes. So, you know, was he salty? I don't know. I don't think so. But was he aware that his last review would go ahead and drop the Metacritic score down that one point, and it was going to piss a lot of people off and bring a lot of attention to him? I'm pretty sure he knew that full well. But, you know, other than that, does he deserve any of the hate or anything like that? No, not at all. Said I don't care for him. I'm not a personal fan. But you know, that's part of his job. And you know, if what he wanted was attention for it, well, he's getting it. Does that mean that, you know, people should be asking for polls for people to see whether or not he should be hung out in public? No, I don't think that's necessary. This is a lot that he went ahead and he threw in when he decided to be a critic. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and bring this short little video to a close, folks. What are your thoughts on the topics here? Whether or not it be, you know, the geek industry, video games, you know, possibly being on a bubble, or Jim Sterling's giving the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild a 7, knowing that it was going to go ahead and drop the Metacritic score. You know, I would love to hear from you. Leave me a comment below. While you're at it, hit like, hit subscribe. Like I said, I still have that contest going on, the giveaway going on for the Steam keys. I would love to see people actively entering it. At least it would tell me that people are actually watching my videos. Go ahead, do that. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe. Every comment you leave below is the start of a brand new conversation. And every conversation, if it's a good conversation, doesn't matter if you agree or disagree, as long as you take what I say, stop for a moment, think about it, then I know I've accomplished a lot more than you could ever believe. Thank you much, YouTube. See you later.